Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Mega 360 and how to set that up from factory defaults until you get the perfect settings to get the most clean, crisp picture that you could possibly get. As I said earlier, this is going to be from factory defaults. You can see right now it's zoomed it way out and we're sitting over some log piles and laydowns in the back of this creek. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to menu and check my settings. I'm going to go to sensitivity, and so in order to adjust the sensitivity, I'm going to crank it way up as far as I can go. And you'll see how it just gets blown out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank that down until I get the best picture that I can find. And usually I end up stopping about 13 on the sensitivity. So another thing to note is that whenever you get up shallower, it's important to adjust your sensitivity accordingly. So if you got a really hard bottom, whereas it's rock or anything, like over in here is the bank, and it starts to get a hard bottom and it's going to start getting blown out, so these pictures aren't really going to show up as good. So if you turn the sensitivity down a little bit, then your stumps will show out a lot better than they were before. So that's just another important thing to note, is that whenever you get shallower or when you get around hard rocky bottoms, that if you turn your contrast down, it may help with seeing your image a little bit better. But as you can see, I turned that down and you can see these laydowns and all these stumps just pop perfectly, as well as this log jam out here in the middle. Same thing with the contrast. I'll crank that all the way down and it'll get blown out. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to come back, and typically I like a little bit more dark in my picture so that it shows the shadows better, but typically I'll end up at 9 or 10 in order to have the best picture for that. So my sensitivity is on 13, contrast on 10, range I like to set that at about 100. The reason I set it at 100 is because my live scope is set at 100 feet, and if I have a stump or an object that comes into picture on my 360, I know it's at 100 feet and I can pan around with my live scope and I can see that stump on my live scope as well. So then I can kind of see them on both screens and see it's kind of the best of both worlds. 360 color, you can play around with this and it's kind of a eyesight thing. If it's cloudy outside or if it's bluebird skies, there may be a color that's better for you, or just in general, each person will have different preferences on this. But I typically either use the color palette 2, which is amber, or I'll use color palette 1, which is the blue. And it just seems to really make these laydowns or stumps or any of the shadows just really pop out with these two color palettes. Dynamic contrast, I don't mess with that. Isolate sweep area, that will allow you to adjust where the sweep is actually going. I don't typically use this, but it gives you that option if you want to. And then display, so this is one that I do use sometimes. So most of the time I leave it on 360, but it also gives you the option to do front, rear, left, or right. The only time I really change this is when I'm like fishing down the bank quite a bit, and I'll put it on front. If I'm moving down the bank faster, it will allow me to see the stuff that's in front of me and not really worry about the stuff that's behind me. So I'm going to change this back to 360 so we can see the whole picture right now. As far as speed, typically I leave this in the middle. I leave this on 3. The slower you go, the better, more crisp of a picture you'll get, but your refresh won't happen as fast. So if you're like running down the bank really fast, you can crank that up to 5 or 6 and you can see how it's repopulating so much faster. But that's really going to negatively affect your picture. So I like to just kind of do a happy medium and leave that on 3. Other than that, I sometimes I'll actually zoom in. I'll press the plus button one time and it kind of gets rid of some of the edges on this, but it'll still allow you to see what you need to see, and these laydowns show up a lot bigger. In this case, we don't really need it to show up a whole lot bigger because these laydowns are pretty big already, but if there was like this small stump in here, might not show up nearly as well if we had it zoomed out. Those are just some of the tricks that I use for my Mega 360. Hope that helped you see a clearer picture of what's going on around you with your Mega 360. And if you like the video, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.